Pretty good. It's only Tuesday.
Oh my goodness, it feels like it's like Wednesday already. Only Tuesday, my goodness.
I feel the same.
Oh, how's everybody's week going?
Things are supposed to slow down in the summer, right? Because that has not happened for me yet. And I was really looking forward to it. And it has, if anything, it's more busy, which is not what I was hoping my summer would be. I guess I probably shouldn't complain about having work to do. So better to have work than not have work.
True. Yes, but it can be challenging because it's a different time with COVID as well. Let's see. Got Sarah here. I think we've got everybody. Right? Cindy is not able to make it, and I think we've got everybody this week. So thank you so much for showing up and participating in this week's class. Can you all believe that it's week 5 already? I'm guessing that's a yes. You're ready for 6?
We're all shaking our head, but no one's saying anything.
Oh, okay. I have a different view on the screen. Okay. Well, yes, we are in week 5, and I just got off the phone with someone who is interested in bringing this into their organization. So it is really exciting because I think that there is an appetite to move away from the status quo and to try something different for a different result. I always like to quote Einstein, but I don't know if it's Einstein because I'm hearing some challenges now about taking the same action and expecting a different result. And so I think in these times, people are looking to try something different, which is good. So I'm so grateful for you all for making the commitment, because I know it's not easy to show up week after week and also to show up outside of class, connecting with your accountability partner, doing some homework, but I thank you for taking the journey, and I'm so proud of us. We're at week 5, and next week we tie it all together. So this week we are talking about technology, and it's so exciting because I have a tech background. It's so exciting to see all the different technologies that are available out there in this space, and I suspect this is only going to grow based on what's happening. There's going to be an appetite for more and more technologies to support business goals and to support organizations and individuals as well. So again, we're at Module 5, Technology on the Roadmap. We talked about that. Today's agenda, just welcome everybody, and any announcements that I have. Module 4, feedback, to thank you all for that feedback that you have been sending through the module feedback form. And I am enlightened and realizing that there is more content to add into this program. So thank you for your builds, and we can only go up from here. And we will get into the lesson and any questions that you have. So how are you doing with the accountability partners? Let me hear from you. How are you doing?
Brian and I are killing it.
Woo! I love to hear that. I love to hear that. Nice. Zoe, who's your partner?
She was just on. I don't know where she went. But I haven't heard from her. So we have not really been accountable.
Okay.
But yeah, I haven't. I sent her an email and I didn't hear back. So
are you with Lanta?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And it's supposed to be Cindy and I, right? Okay. So I feel like the accountability partnership thing is a good thing to unpack the discussions after we get out of the program. And so it's sort of another learning opportunity for you. So if you guys can try to connect for this module and the next one, I think it would be a good thing. I think you still would see some value from connecting. So
Yeah.
Brian and Sarah, talk to me about your experience with the accountability.
Well, one comment I wanted to make is what worked really well for us is having like a set date every week that we talk for a half hour. Because I know like with everything going on in all of our lives, like it's really hard for me to fit something in. But if it's already in my calendar, then I'm not scheduling something during that time every week.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to work well. Like it's always 10 o'clock before this 1 o'clock meeting. So I don't know if that's a suggestion you want to make to like the future class of how they set up, you know, what is your scheduled time to talk to your accountability partner, maybe in the survey.
Mhm.
But I don't think if Brian and I had done that, I would have done as well as at keeping up with him, just because all of our lives are crazy.
Yeah.
But it has been extremely beneficial and something that, you know, I think at first I was like, ugh, and now I can't wait to talk to Brian. So, you know, it's almost like a mental hurdle. You have to like kind of decide that you're gonna, it's not just one more phone call, but having it set every week is really helpful for us.
Good. Brian, you look like you want to say something. You are all smiles. Are you trying to say something? You're on mute.
No, I was really just, you know, feeling proud of my partner, Sarah.
Oh,
Yes.
all
But
right.
you know, yeah, it's just like, I echo what she says, basically. It's like when you build it in, then it becomes part of what you're doing versus if all of a sudden 5 days goes by and you're like, how are we going to fit it in? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really good feedback. I even tell some of my coaching clients, I tell them to plan thinking time into their calendars as well as self-care. So I totally get that. And I will convey that message for future classes, just to build that time in. Especially, I live by my calendar. If it's not on the calendar, there's a good chance that it's not happening. So also want to shout out to Brian. He was on the racism panel discussion yesterday. We had a great time, and I am going to be sending out some information on that, but it's on my YouTube channel and very well received. Yesterday was the male edition, so we were talking about strategies to fight racism, and all the gentlemen brought it, and so it was a good conversation. So that's on the YouTube. The online portal, are you guys having any challenges with that, or you now have the hang of it? You can get in, get what you need? Good, good. The next class for this session is going to be August 4th. If you know anybody that you think would benefit from taking this journey, please send them my way. But yeah, the next class will be on August 4th, and we'll go through the 6 weeks together again.
One other suggestion I have, Simone, for next time, I know for me, it's kind of wonky, but the email that I gave you isn't the same one I use for Zoom. And then that's not the one I'm on all the time. So like if there was some way that you could send out the Zoom link, a link to the portal, and a link to the feedback form, like each time we have a session, so it's all in one place, because I'm like always looking up your name and then trying to scroll through emails. That's why I'm late today, because I just couldn't find the updated Zoom link.
Okay.
I think that might be helpful too.
That's great. I don't know if you noticed, you got an email from me last night as a reminder, because I thought, should I do it the day before? Should I do it the day of? Just to remind, because I realized when I do Eventbrite, they're sending you multiple reminders, like 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 hours before, 10 minutes before, just to remind people and remind them. So I think what I will do is send a reminder the day before, and then send a reminder the morning of, including that information, if that's helpful. Okay. And so is it on the invite? Are you, Brian and Zoe, having the same challenge with finding the link?
I mean, yeah, I type your name into my email to search for that first email with the Zoom link and everything. Yeah, it was helpful to get the Jot form link again.
Okay.
Last night or today, or when you sent it. Yeah, that was a helpful reminder to just log in and do those.
Okay.
I go to the calendar invite, so it's on my calendar, and then yeah, there's I find the Zoom meeting link in the calendar, but I'm living off of Google because I'm on my own. Those of you who might be dealing with business email, it might not be rendering on your email.
Okay, that's good to know, because Google, it really irritates me because I've had people show up on a Hangout because Google adds in its own Google Hangout if I set up a meeting and I have to specifically say Zoom. So, okay, I take that feedback. I'm going to incorporate more reminders with those 3 important links each week. Thank you for that. That's very helpful. Okay. All right, so module 4, I think I may have everyone's. If you're not caught up on the feedback forms, please do so. I want to ask you a question. Would it be helpful for me to update the presentation with your feedback? My initial intent was to get everybody's feedback on Saturday and update it so that you would have the updated presentation. I'm not getting everybody's feedback, so I have not released an updated version, but it will be in the portal because I'm figuring at the end, I'm pulling everything together and getting it updated. Are you, what are your thoughts on having the updates along the way, or are you okay getting the updates at the end of each of the modules that we go through?
Personally, I think the end is fine. I mean, I haven't gone back except for the one the last week that I missed and watched any of the past ones yet. I'm sure I will when this is over. And I'm like, what did Simone say about that? But I personally don't have a need for the updates for, you know, a week after. But I would do whatever's easier for you, so you're not updating it 10 times.
Yeah, that's why I haven't updated it. I am very grateful for the feedback because the builds have been amazing. I'm like, wow, yeah, that's a really good idea. So in terms of additional content to add in, someone mentioned a comment about whether you're a small business or a corporation, how things might be different in receiving the content. So I take that perspective in. I come from a corporate background, so I speak a lot of corporate lingo, but I need to, as a small business owner, as well, think about that. So I thought that was really good feedback. And, you know, I think it's going to be different the next go around because this is the beta test. So our experience is different. I'm not going to be updating it at the end unless something comes out that I feel is really vital that needs to be incorporated. Okay, so thank you for those forms. If anyone is not caught up on the feedback forms, please catch up. Do you have questions for me? What were you hearing this week about inclusion? Because there's a lot of inclusion talk still going on.
Well, while people are thinking, I'll offer sort of a thought on your last comment, Simone, about how you, as you finesse the final content for future cohorts, then maybe it'll be a little bit more evergreen or established. But I also liked what you showed, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, when you talked about your alma mater, was it Quinnipiac, and they share, it's almost like as a part of your standard, maybe you pull in whatever the current event is so that you kind of highlight what's really in the news in the midst of all of this, the steady state stuff.
Yes.
So, because I thought that was really great to kind of see something very concrete and current, right? And that's going to always be changing.
Yes, that's really good feedback. And I will do that because the news is just fire hosing based on what's going on. It's interesting. After I got off the call with you talking about Quinnipiac, I got a text message from a fellow Quinnipiac alumni saying, "Can you believe this?" And I was like, "Oh, I thought that was pretty good." So not everybody receives the action plans or efforts well. You may think that's really great that Sticker Mule or whatever company is doing this. But on the other side, there's another perspective. So this text that I received reminded me of my experience at Quinnipiac many, many moons ago. And he said, this is something that they've been trying to do for almost 30 years. And I was just like, wow, okay, I feel like it's different because I had Dr. Fred on the racism panel, and he shed some insight to me on what's going on. But then I went on to LinkedIn, and they hired a senior inclusive director. This is new for me because there's what I've seen is chief diversity officer, diversity program manager, diversity and inclusion, etc. You know, those types of things. But to now have someone who is focused on inclusion, I think that's a shift that we're going to see more of. Was anybody able to find out what their alma maters are doing, or kudos to a company that's doing something great?
I didn't look for that. I know my alma mater is has never done enough, and I only hear like bad things out of them right now. Which it's interesting to flip that and say, like, you know, this is an opportunity for us to shine in this area versus an opportunity for us to get in the news with bad press. Not necessarily in the inclusion space, but it's always been kind of a more, I guess, I don't want to use the word conservative, but the culture around inclusion has always been, certainly I think some of my professors practice that and take it really seriously, but it's never been, in my view, like a university-wide thing. And if it is, it's just a statement. Like, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Imagine how well armed you are after this program, after the conversations we have been having to challenge the status quo with questions. You know, they don't have to be statements of calling out people. That's still sticking in my head. It could be, hey, I just took this course and it's focused on inclusive leadership. I'm wondering what our stance is and what we're doing. Is there changes going on with the faculty or the students that are going to be attending the programs that we're offering? And that alone is going to stir up some response. By the way, I forgot to ask, how's your grandma?
She's good. She's a fighter, so she's in good spirits.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. All right, good stuff. So we talked about accountability. Any questions that you all have from last week's session? Okay. All right, I think it's a good opportunity to take your temperature on technologies that are being leveraged for inclusion. Can anybody share an example of technologies that their organizations or companies or you personally are using that you feel brings forward awareness and insights around inclusion?
I'm at 0. Nothing.
That's okay. Well, hey, I don't know how many people are using social media, but think about Facebook as an example. Facebook is an opportunity, a technology to leverage for fostering inclusion. It could be from the standpoint of the groups that you join, the people that you're connected to, the topics that you engage in from a conversation standpoint. Certainly you will see posts that are provoking exclusion, but you can also learn a lot from the Facebook platform. Facebook itself is being challenged based on their, not their supplier diversity. They have an extensive supplier diversity program, and they've committed a huge amount of dollars recently for minority businesses. But their CEO is being challenged for the content that's on Facebook because he's not censoring comments, provocative comments that are deemed hate speech comments that are coming from the White House, right? So there are people that are leaving the Facebook platform, as well as there are organizations who are boycotting advertising on the Facebook platform. So you can see that there's an opportunity there with that technology, even as an individual, how you show up, even as a small business owner, creating your own group, and the content that you post could demonstrate your leadership, demonstrate your skills as an inclusive leader. Based on the comments, the things that you do, you could do Facebook Lives with different groups where you talk about inclusion, or you can consume. You can be a consumer until you decide how you want to show up. But that is an opportunity. I would say that across the board. I stress it for the LinkedIn platform because I think many people are lurkers on the LinkedIn platform and not using their influence and voice enough when it comes to inclusion. Some of it could be, I've heard people say they don't know what to say, and some of it is fear of judgment. Fear of judgment and how that's going to impact your livelihood going forward because you've made a stance or you've said something that employers can now go back and look and check that. Hopefully the time where employers are checking and using things against you, hopefully that's on the decline based on what's going on now. And there's pushback on that certainly as well. But think about how you can use the different social media platforms to shine a light on injustice, to use your voice, whether it's in terms of allyship or advocacy, to draw attention to issues and to share messages which drive education. Now, I want to suggest to you that in terms of recruitment and retention, there are opportunities to leverage technologies. And some of you may be using some of these technologies as well. But let me just bring some to your attention. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many more technologies. And as a matter of fact, I think what I'll do is start a thread in our LinkedIn group where you can post technologies that you come across that people are using, and we'll keep a running list of that. So there's this software, and I've put the websites here so that will be helpful to you if you want to check some of these out after the fact. So this is one that has been around for quite some time. And what I love about this is that it actually scores your job description. So it's going to tell you if you're leaning heavily on the masculine side with the language that you're using. So if let's zoom this up. Here's this job description. You guys see this? And actually there was a job post from Twitter that I wanted to grab to show you where the company was saying that they didn't want anyone that was a rebel rouser or advocacy champion, and someone posted it and said, I wouldn't want to work for this company anyway, or so. And I was just floored that it was actually a real job description, but it was talking about who wasn't welcomed at the company, and it leaned towards people championing or fighting for causes, that they didn't really want wave makers. I will find it and post it. I'm telling you, Twitter is a great source of what is going on. I mean, it's a fire hose, but from time to time I catch these different posts that I'm like, whoa, what's that? Click. And I saw that last week, I saw that. But anyway, here's this job description. And so your job description can be validated, and take a look on the right hand side where it's saying slightly masculine tone, so you can get an idea of your job posting. We looked at it last week, some of the things that people were, was it last week? I think it was the week before, what people were looking for with hiring, you know, the top of the echelon that they wanted, and how it can be exclusionary without meaning to be. You know, they're putting out this laundry list of all the things that they want. And I suspect there's going to be a lot of challenges around tiptoeing on eggshells about culture. We want someone who fits our culture, and how that could be exclusionary. So I think people are going to be looking at the use of that culture, a good fit, a good cultural fit, and using that. But this is one that I think will be interesting for you to check out. Is anybody using this? Okay.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So I get a lot of like cold calls and emails from like solicitors who want to, as a state association, a lot of them email us that they want to do this, they want to do that, whatever. And the difference between like an email from a man and an email from a woman or an email from a person who identifies, you know, as other is so different. Like like just the tone that, you know, men seem to use is so much more aggressive. It's like they're like, okay, I'll put some time on your calendar this Tuesday, talk then. It's like I haven't even responded to you, and it's interesting that there's like a way to
Check the language.
Or language, yeah, because I don't reply to things like that, because it's just, if you're gonna be this pushy in your first email, I don't know if that's gonna work. But I think this would be an interesting, like, to survey people and just see how different people interpret language like this, and if it like skews one way or the other, depending on your gender or your like your race or however you identify.
Yeah, I think the key point here is that look at your organization and the opportunities that you might not even think about, where you're doing things that signal exclusion. And you may not think about the job description, but that is a place for you to look at the language that's being used. And it's interesting, the gender conversation. I have this conversation with my fiance, and he, you know, I'll see something and I'll see some sort of RFP or something like that. I'm like checking to see what I have to qualify and thinking I'm not going to apply for this. And he's like, you got this. So I'm like, yeah, I've got to do a spin on this. I don't have this. And he's like, no, you should go for it. So it's very different, I think, men and women, how we see things. And I don't know if you guys have this experience when you look at it or trying to check the box of what you qualify for or not.
There was something on Twitter, I think it was a couple weeks ago, about how women won't apply for things that they don't think they're qualified for, and men will literally apply for anything regardless of whether or not they're qualified. And
Brian's making these faces. I'm not laughing at you, Zoe. He keeps making these faces.
I'm being silly because every time you say men, and of course I totally understand what you mean, but so I'm doing the mock offense. You're like, oh, men, they make this assumption, I'll schedule that appointment, or, but it's
I shouldn't generalize, but.
No, I've seen it as well. I'm a very unique man.
So what's your perspective, unique man?
Right.
I think that the technology, I've heard about this. I haven't actually gotten to engage or practice it. I think that there's, you know, maybe like a tiered financial model, right? So it's like you can do a trial, then you have to pay a certain amount, you know, etc. I've heard mostly positive news about how people feel like this has really helped them work their job descriptions. So, and then I've heard that anecdote many times, and I even see it myself. I mean, as a gay man, I sometimes feel very proud of how tuned into my feminine energy I am, and how I think empathy is one of my strengths. But I also filter similarly, right? I think most job descriptions are written for superheroes. And then I sort of say, oh, well, you know, I don't have all 97 of these things, but I have gotten better based on that anecdote. And I've coached many women of color about the same thing you're pointing to, Simone. But I often say to myself, oh, I have everything but this. And then I kind of hold back a little. And I've just tried to overcome that by just, you know, what do you have to lose? Mm-hmm. You know, it's even interesting for me, having written many job descriptions, having reviewed many job descriptions, having been on interview panels with people searching, that I never even had this simple knowledge about like how gendered or biased a job description could be, right? So it's that idea of, you know, examples like this help to demonstrate things that we don't know or didn't know we didn't know, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
I definitely feel that too. I mean, I love this. I'm like already thinking of the email I'm going to send to my HR department to see about using this because, you know, a couple months ago, I was considering a move and a job move and a location move. And I started looking on like Indeed for stuff, and all the stuff in nonprofit, I was like, I don't qualify for anything. And I have 5 years in the nonprofit field. And it was really kind of like, it was depressing because I was like, I can't do any of these jobs. And I think I already told Brian and I already told Zoe, so, and it stays here, but you know, my boss this week or last week offered me like a mammoth promotion. And I have no idea how to do anything that I'm going to need to do. But she said to me, she was like, you have potential and that's what we're looking for. And I was like mind blown because I have none of the skills needed for this job. And so like for me, it did make me think back to what Zoe was talking about. Like, I think generally as women, you know, I don't think that I should apply for something I'm not qualified for as it's listed on the job description. But if I really pick out what skills they're talking about, maybe I would think that. So I think the job description and the ads that come out, you know, we're seeking this, this, and this, and here are the minimum requirements, you know, it's crazy because it really does hold me back from thinking, okay, I can do this job. So I can only, you know, imagine that it does the same thing for other people.
I think nonprofits too are a completely different beast, like looking at their job postings, because there aren't a lot of like middle management job postings for nonprofits. It's either like an entry level job that pays, you know, $12 an hour, or it's like a director spot where you need 15 years of experience. You need all of these things that you only have by working at a nonprofit. And so I think a lot of the time, like, at least for me, like, and like you said, Sarah, it's like intimidating. It's okay, well, I don't want like to overstep and apply for something that I may not be qualified to do, because what if I am truly not qualified to do it?
Right.
Or is it, you know, they're just looking for someone that they can teach, which isn't always, you know, posted on a job.
Yeah, that's usually not on the job description.
Yeah, and I have two thoughts. One is, how will you pay this forward, Sarah? Because think about what's happening here in terms of being given this opportunity. I think we individually need to think about, how do we give others opportunity? And I'll use myself as an example. I interviewed a virtual assistant this week, and I wasn't 100% sold on the person. And then I asked for references, and I didn't get it in the way that I want to get it. I got it in a different format. So I had to have a talk with myself about walking the talk. So I came up with a way to give her an opportunity to see if this works, right? To do a trial run. But instead of just being like, nope, that's not the person, and going for someone else, I realized that I can do a better job of betting on talent as well. I'm telling companies to do that, but I need to do that as well. So I just wonder, with this, you use the word mammoth opportunity, you now have a chance to pay it forward as you think about your staff or who's going to work with you, and who doesn't fully meet that checklist of 10 or 20 things.
No, I mean, this whole thing became a lot more relevant in the last week. So I've been thinking about that a lot.
Yeah.
You're so smart. There's nothing that I truly believe that you couldn't do. So I'm sure.
You know, it's all, but I think I mean, a lot of it's stuff I have to work on, right? Personally, it's self-doubt, the fear of being found out, all of those things. But I think I think it's fear of failure too. I don't want to get someone somewhere high and then fail.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that holds me back from even trying. So, I mean, I did thank my boss and said, you know, I never would have thought that I could do this, but because you have faith in me, I can start to have faith in me. But it's totally gendered. I mean, it's amazing to see what my partner applies for and what I think I can apply for. I mean, there's just a huge difference.
Well, congratulations. Every week. Congratulations. That's amazing. Well done. And my daughter's giving you a popsicle to celebrate. Okay. Thank you.
Fine.
Okay. Well, let's see. Let's keep going. Here's another interesting one. Okay. Thank you, sweetheart.
You know what, Simone? I actually think this is bringing up an awesome thing that I've been recognizing, that there's always been this, not for me, but I see it with other people, this idea that we can't have our kids in the office on a school day or on a Zoom call. And it's total bullshit. Excuse me, I shouldn't have cussed, but it's crazy. And I'm so glad your daughter is making noise right now, because if I had a child, there's no way I would be able to make them be quiet for an hour. And we, like, as a culture, we need to get used to that.
Well, you just spoke to her because she's like back over here. She was here last week with Brian and I too. So I'm getting better.
I love it.
Yeah,
my boss is a 4-year-old, and he ran behind her naked yesterday. He had come in from outside. He was like playing like with the sprinkler or something with his grandma, and he just came in, like took his bathing suit off and just ran right through the screen. It was like, oh, hey Dashi, how's it going?
It's a new world, and my daughter is becoming a Zoom expert. She just wants to be a part of it. Okay. I want to bring up this organization or this application called Blendor. It actually allows you to remove the name, photo, race, age, name, gender with it allows you to remove that. It's available on LinkedIn as well as Facebook, and they're calling it like the Tinder of applying for a job, where you can swipe and say not this one as the applicant, but also in how the, excuse me 1 second, Millie, please stop playing with that light, sweetheart. Okay. In terms of how companies receive the information. So this is another good one to check out, Blendor. And the woman who did it is a minority women-owned business and is getting a lot of kudos for this application. She comes from the tech space, MIT graduate, and very well educated, but had difficulties breaking into the tech space. So she decided to create her own product. And so now, you know, this is definitely my lane. This is definitely my lane about, please stop doing that, sweetheart, okay? Seems like I have a disco light going. All right, so this is another one I suggest that you check out, blendor.com, as an opportunity to remove unconscious bias from the hiring. I'm also wondering about the applicant tracking systems. I believe that could potentially cause some exclusion because it's ruling out applicants before they even get in. So what is the technology behind that, and is there an opportunity to change that? And this is a quote from Stephanie Lampkin, who is the founder of this Blendor system. She said, Blendor is a merit-based matching app. We don't want to be considered a diversity app. Our branding is about just helping companies find the best talent, period. Now, I think this is interesting. This one is about background checks. And I was really well pleased to see that this company is standing up for equity and is looking at the way they do background checks. So think about it. This inclusion thing is like an octopus, like many legs, many places. And so this is something that could be used. They don't know what your company is using for background checks, but to really challenge the companies and ask questions about how do you ensure that the people we're getting, that we're inclusive and not excluding others? Is there an opportunity for us to challenge ourselves on this?
Have a bite.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Have a bite.
Yeah, so I think the background check thing is interesting. So at my organization, we run a lot of reentry programs. So trying to get people who have some kind of, previous incarceration jobs. And thankfully, they've kind of figured out ways to walk the talk on this. And we do hire, we are more conscious of not discriminating against people who have a criminal record. I know with background checks, when I'm, doing Dress for Success and volunteers, we do a background check on every single volunteer who walks through the door. I only mention that when we get to the point of, okay, here's the application. This is why we do the background check. But I've often thought about like how people perceive that background check. And I've never had anyone come back with anything that wasn't, mostly it's like grand larceny and things like that. But I do kind of wonder like if that prohibits people from applying to volunteer.
I'm sure because of the stigma. It's like mental health, having a police record, and what we've been taught about that can hold people back from applying for roles. So I think that's a valid point. Were you going to say something, Zoe?
Yeah, so that's one of the things with a lot of our members is, they're programs that, work with kids or work with people with, intellectual or developmental disabilities, and the background check requirements for federal funding and a lot of state funding are very, very strict. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time, I think there are, even I shouldn't say a lot of the time, but I think there are issues with, the federal requirements for running a background check versus, the actual application of running and vetting people based solely on that background check, and having to say, well, this is a great candidate. Because by the time you get to the stage of running a background check, generally you're one of the top candidates, and, they're doing that just to make sure that there's nothing there. But a lot of funding requires several background checks, especially if you're working with vulnerable populations. So I wonder if this is something that we could bring in to help people, sort those background checks better.
I think that's a great point. I think that's a really great point, Zoe, that this area is going to change. I think it's going to have to. So I was glad to check this company out and see that they had a stance on how it's actually changing, because I can't imagine that it's not going to change based on the conversation about treatment. And so, the validity of some of these police records, I think this space is one to watch. This is another company that you can use. There's actually an article in CIO, Chief Information Officer magazine, talking about different technologies organizations can use. I'll post that so you can take a look at that, but it tackles the different areas in HR. And so that will be an opportunity for you to pick up. The list was too long to bring them all in here, but I'll post that for you so you can get some additional ideas of technologies that you can leverage. But this is another one, and this has to do with talent acquisition. So it's Pymetrics. And what I thought was interesting about this one is that they have leveraged in their standards in building the technology, standards around the Disabilities Act, standards around EEOC. These different inclusion opportunities are built into the technology. And so I think this is another one you can check out in regards to getting new talent in. I mean, take a look at what they say. We ensure gender and ethnic fairness in every algorithm we deploy. So I think that's interesting to check out as well.
What did you say besides the EEOC? There was another sort
AD,
of
the American Disabilities Act.
Ah.
There's a long list of things, of standards that they incorporate. But I think it's interesting because I think some of these technologies that are artificial intelligence based, they're being asked, well, how are you factoring in diversity and inclusion into this? So I was pleased to see that they had a list of our software incorporates this. So one to check out. Now, I thought this was really, really cool. It's called Equal Reality. It's leveraging virtual reality and teaching your employees about empathy and action and mitigating unconscious bias. By wearing these goggles, you're able to walk in somebody else's shoes. You all should check out the demo of this because I thought it was just, wow, what an interesting concept. You put it on and then you assume a different identity and you have an experience as this identity. So you can see this woman with the goggles on. So check out equalreality.com. I think that gamification, we're going to see a lot more technology around that. Virtual reality, these simulations. This space is a hot space to be in with regards to inclusive leadership. This one is about the performance review process. What a great idea to check your performance reviews out for bias in that. Who is providing feedback on performance and how are they doing this? This organization has come up with a product that can be used to test for bias in the performance reviews process. So I thought this was interesting as well to check this area. If you think about it, onboarding with the background check, the recruitment, there's a lot around diversity hiring. There's diversity and inclusion recruiters. There's stuff around dashboards and measurements, but this performance review one I think is an interesting idea. A lot of these, like Brian said before, a lot of these sites have a demo. So my suggestion to you would be to try out the demo and try it on with your organization experience to see how it could be a fit for your organization. I want to bring up project management because this is something to think about as you think about technologies. Just in general, when we talk about project management, the phases that you go through, you initiate the idea with your requirement that you want. Hey, I want to check our process from end to end and see if there's opportunities to be more inclusive. So maybe that's the idea that's come up in initiation, and so there's a bit of work around defining the requirements. Then you have to go through a planning process where you're working with different teams to plan out what's required to deliver the solution that you select. It needs to be executed. That means the work needs to be done. The project manager is monitoring and controlling the work, and then the project is closed out. I show this because it's not a cut and dry to just decide, hey, I want this technology, and then it's implemented. There's work behind the scenes that needs to happen. And in the world of project management, according to the Project Management Institute, there are phases that you go through for that. I did want to talk to you about responsibility. Who is responsible for what when it comes to implementing new technology? Presumably you have an IT department that you can work with. I don't know if that's in-house or outsourced. Even if you're a small company, you may hire a vendor to do the IT portion of the work that you want to do. But from a business standpoint, the business is responsible for defining the project requirements. What is the requirement? What do I need this software to do? What do I need this technology to do? What is my timeline for getting this work done? What is the budget for getting this work done? You need to understand that. The business is also responsible for signing off on the requirement, because when the solution comes in, you want to make sure it's the actual requirements that you requested. So you need to, as a business owner, understand what the true requirements are and what success looks like. So success looks like, for me, in terms of inclusion, that there's a more diverse workspace. So I'm looking at the different dimensions of diversity, and there's more of that that I can visibly see in the organization. So maybe that's a requirement for me. Also, maybe there's some retention requirements that I have. So not only do I have this diverse set of people in the organization, they are engaging in the organization. So when we do surveys, I'm getting more feedback from diverse employees about their experience in the organization. I'm seeing more of them on projects, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to have a clear idea of what your requirements are and what success looks like for the project that you're going to undertake. And I think this is for any project that you do, but just a good refresher as you think about bringing new technologies into your organization. You as a business owner would be responsible for working with the IT, the information technology team, for doing testing, participating in meetings, QA, signing off on the solution, and also communication back and forth, whether it's a weekly meeting, whether it's a daily, depending on the type of project management you do, whether it's agile, and so there's more interaction with the information technology team. But those are some of the things that is the responsibility of the business, or the business analyst, or the business person assigned for implementing this new technology. Now on the IT side, they need to assign a project manager who's going to be the technical project manager responsible for this implementation. The project manager's job is to validate the requirements and poke holes in it, where they need to make sure that they understand what the true requirements are for the project, so that they can then translate it to the vendor that's being hired to do the work. They are then going to identify a solution, select a vendor, oversee the work that has to be done, and all this time working with the business, communicating with the business, and ensuring that the work is delivered. So their responsibility is to deliver a technical solution to you that works for your requirement that you said that you want. Anybody implementing any technologies at work that have to do with inclusive leadership? Not at this time, okay. But think about what's happening in the world. This may come into your responsibilities with the work that you have to do, because organizations are having to change. And so one of the projects that could come up for you is a technology that is going to foster more inclusion in the workplace. What questions do you have as we begin to wrap up this week? That was a quick look at some of the technologies that are available. Again, I'm going to provide more resources to you that you can take a look at, see what makes sense for your organization. Questions or comments?
I don't have any questions. I thought that was a really good overview, kind of looking at very different steps and kind of different technologies that do different things. So I'm excited to share some of these with our HR department.
Good. And your HR department might be looking at solutions already. So it'll be interesting. I think this week, I'd love to hear, when you have conversations with your HR departments, what they are looking at to address this need, because this is a need. So bring that back to class next week, or even into your accountability conversations.
I can't remember what the software.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me.
Can you guys hear Brian?
Barely.
It's very muffled.
Can you hear me better now? Hello, hello?
A little bit.
A little bit. Interesting. I haven't changed anything except on mute or off. Hello?
Great.
Better?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. That was weird. Technology hiccup. I was just saying I'm struggling to remember what, I think there are a couple of suppliers for this, but it's either app-based or platform-based, and the idea of micro learning, because you think about how busy everybody is and how this work really requires constant reinforcement. So I'll try to find it, and if I can find it, post it in the LinkedIn group. But there are now these things that, you know, the same way you would get a reminder on your phone about something, it's sort of like, you know, whether it's practice self-care, practice mindfulness, practice inclusive leadership, right? It's, and they kind of give you like a thought for the day, and then a possible way to practice it.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things that I was thinking as you were sharing these other tools that are helpful. I just can't remember for the life of me what the heck the resource is called.
I think what might be a good exercise for us is to, let's all see if we can download Blendor and kind of take a look at that app experience that you're talking about, Brian, because that's definitely one of the ones that are applications. I know that they have the desktop version, but they have the app. And let's just kind of see, we'll do a trial version and see and experience that. That's one of them. And if you come up with others, be sure to post them and we can try them out as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these are great opportunities. So we run a vendor program where we connect nonprofits with for-profits. And I think a lot of these could definitely be used. We also run a job board, which I haven't really thought about until right now. Like, maybe we should be taking steps to make sure that, you know, people who are using the job board, and because people use it, like you can do all of your hiring in like one spot. So a lot of nonprofits use it. But seeing if like we could get maybe an add-on for the job board to help, you know, like an option to take away the names and gender and all of that. But I definitely think that there are a lot of resources here. So I'll probably be emailing them to see if they want to join our vendor program so we can advertise them out to nonprofits in Connecticut.
What a great idea. That is a great idea. Let me know how that unfolds. I would love to follow that one. Yeah. Good. So that's it for this week. I want you to complete the module survey like you usually do. And think about how you are transforming during this experience, how you're transforming as an inclusive leader. And so pay attention to that, because I want you to come out of the end of next week with an action plan of what is your plan, even if it's for the next 90 days. What do you personally plan to do? And be sure to connect with your accountability partner. Put some time on the calendar to connect with them this week. And reach out to me as a resource for any questions or whatever it is.
Mom,
okay.
Just in my carrot.
So perfect timing to to wrap up this week. Thank you guys so much. If you don't have any questions, I will let you go a little bit early. I know we talked about expanding the time, but I feel like this is succinct enough to get the idea of technologies that are available to you.
Yeah, and we have a couple fewer people, so the conversation doesn't go as long. Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you all for showing up and for talking and showing up offline as well. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks, have a good week.
Stay cool. Bye, Millie.
Oh, she's serious.